Good afternoon, members of the media, and thanks for your patience and indulgence. We have convened today's briefing to give you the outcomes of the National Executive Committee that we held from Friday up until today. The Deputy Secretary General is going to present those outcomes and will also take questions from yourselves immediately afterwards. Over to you, DSG.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media, and I hope you all have had COVID-free moments and your families are all safe. The NEC of the ANC met virtually for 3 days. We sat from on the 9th and the 10th and again today, the 12th of July. We acknowledge that it was meeting a day after the burial of President Kenneth Kaunda and recalled the enormous contribution made by Comrade KK to the struggle for liberation, equality, and justice, in addition to other activities to honor this hero of the people of Africa, including the attendance of to the state memorial of our own president and the ANC chairperson, Comrade Gwede Mantashe. We will also be holding a national memorial service for Comrade KK very soon, and it will be announced. We also dip our heads in remembrance of all South Africans whose relatives and friends and loved ones who have passed on during the course of the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, we extend our sincere condolences to former President Jacob Zuma and his family and wish them strength as they mourn the passing away of Comrade Zuma's brother, Comrade Mike Zuma. On acts of violence and destruction, as you can imagine, much of our time was spent looking at sporadically over the 3 days at what was going on in the country, and we have dispatched members of the NEC to KwaZulu-Natal, and some are working in Gauteng already. Our meeting took place at a time when several parts of our country are experiencing sporadic acts of violence, looting, intimidation, and destruction of property. We condemn these acts without reservation. We support the government in efforts to strengthen its response and take harsher measures against this rioting, looting, and destruction of property. While these actions are being characterized by some people as a form of political protest, they are now clearly acts of sheer criminality. The ANC calls on religious leaders, trade unions, civil society, and all concerned South Africans to join us in condemning criminality, looting, and wanton destruction of livelihoods. The current violence in parts of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng is having damaging effects on the economy and livelihoods. A number of business organizations have registered their concerns with the widespread vandalism and destruction. Although there may be opportunistic and adventurous acts of looting driven by hardship and poverty, the poor and the marginalized will bear the brunt of this looting and destruction as critical public services are disrupted and jobs are lost. Access to safe and reliable public transport is being interrupted, and several small businesses have been destroyed. They will never recover, as we heard some business people say on television today. The ANC repeats that we will never tolerate attempts to respond to judicial or legal processes by threats and acts of violence. Law enforcement agencies must deal with looting and criminality, and the instigators of such acts must be brought to book. The NEC shares the pain of many ANC members and supporters who are saddened by the incarceration of President Jacob Zuma. While reaffirming our respect for the Constitution and the rule of law, we acknowledge that his imprisonment is a source of tension for some of our members. We nevertheless urge members to remain calm and desist from acts which divide and weaken our organization. The NEC reaffirms our support for the ANC leadership in both KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng and instructs our deployees to these provinces to prioritize their engagements with structures in the province. The NEC itself will continue to engage structures throughout the country and in line with the applicable COVID regulations to brief our members in our approach to the situation. We've already had several briefings over the past week where we have engaged via Zoom and other platforms with members of our organization. Defeating the COVID-19 pandemic. South Africa is now in the midst of a third wave of infections that is proving to be more severe and may last longer than either of the previous two waves. The third wave is largely being driven by the Delta variant, which is more transmissible and more contagious than any other variant currently in our country. Whilst infections are now seemingly beginning to level off in Gauteng, we are seeing alarming increases in the Western Cape, Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Northwest. Hospitalizations and tragically deaths remain very high, and our health system is under enormous strain. We commend frontline health workers for their continued dedication and service. The ANC therefore welcomes the announcement by President Ramaphosa to extend Alert Level 4 lockdown with additional adjustments to allow for further economic activity. We call on citizens to adhere to the lockdown regulations and specifically to avoid gathering in large numbers. COVID-19 is real and strikes indiscriminately. It is encouraging to hear that we should have much greater access to vaccines, and vaccine shortage should no longer be any impediment to us speeding up our vaccination program. However, the unrest of today has stopped the vaccinations from going ahead. So people are suffering because of the wantonness of a few. The ANC welcomes the steady increase in the rate of vaccination and urges government to speed this up exponentially. We are heartened that the Sinovac vaccine has now been approved by SAPRA. The ANC notes that 2 Cuban vaccines have been found to be effective and believe these vaccines will be submitted to the relevant authorities to undergo applicable approval processes. We remain committed to the multi-vaccine strategy. The ideal state of affairs will still be for South Africa and other countries on the continent to be allowed to manufacture vaccines on the continent. We continue to engage vaccine manufacturers to temporarily waive their intellectual property rights and share their technology for COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. Structures of the movement, the alliance, and the broader democratic movement must spread the message that vaccines are safe and they do save lives. On local government, the NEC received presentations on the state of local government and local government finances. These presentations provided a detailed picture of the state of local government in the areas of political governance, administration, service delivery, and financial management. The NEC acknowledged that there are at least 45 municipalities where the financial and other crises are so severe that national government may have to intervene in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution. Once the applicable government processes have been finalized, the SGO will engage affected provinces to ensure that ANC structures cooperate with appointed administrators and do not impede the efforts of stabilizing municipalities. There are further 60 municipalities that are termed hotspots, which require rapid response teams constituted by national and provincial government with the ultimate goal to get the municipalities performing their mandates and delivering basic services to our people. Strategic vacant posts, such as those of municipal managers and chief financial officers in local municipalities, must be filled as a matter of urgency. The necessary checks and balances must be put in place to ensure these posts are filled by qualified and competent individuals. We also need to strengthen our candidate selection processes to ensure that ANC councillors have the necessary skills and competence to serve their communities. The SGO will engage with the ANC Electoral Committee and provinces to ensure both retention of skilled comrades and bringing on board new candidates with the required qualifications and legitimacy within communities. The NEC received a detailed report from the Electoral Committee on progress with the selection of ANC candidates for the local government elections through democratic processes in ANC branches and with full participation of members of the community. The NEC approved proposal by the Electoral Committee to strengthen these processes. The NEC also directed that the NEC Subcommittee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs engage with the Electoral Committee and the Integrity Commission regarding further strengthening the powers of the Integrity Commission and other relevant structures on the conduct of internal democratic processes and inclusion of the rules, powers, and functions of the Electoral Committee in the ANC Constitution and Code of Conduct, and prepare proposals for consideration by the NEC in preparation for the next national conference, which, as you know, is at the end of 2022. The NEC agreed that the ANC will institute a process whereby political structures will interview mayoral candidates once the lists of 3 candidates have been submitted in order to identify strengths and weaknesses. This requirement will also apply to candidates for premiers during the national and provincial elections. Consideration will be given to similar requirements for comrades who are considered at all levels of government. These are elected people, members who are elected on the lists of the ANC. The ANC agreed that local government must begin to insource a number of services to minimize corruption, attract young people with skills, and create a number of local jobs. The NEC will engage provinces to strengthen the system of monitoring and evaluation of local government. We will reconfigure and strengthen the Legislature and Governance Subcommittee as part of our overall review of NEC subcommittees and set up a specific team to focus on local government. We will also, as a matter of urgency, ensure immediate intervention to deal with urgent issues that are facing communities in many municipalities. The NEC took a moment to acknowledge areas where ANC cadres in various municipalities have done their best to meet the people's expectations. An instance in this regard is Mayor Nomvuyo Umposelwa of the Senku local municipality in the Eastern Cape, who is reported to have sustained this exemplary performance, an example that should inspire peers in other parts of the country. We agree with Comrade Nomvuyo that accountability and monitoring of performance are important elements of delivering quality services to our communities. The NEC noted that reports on preparations towards local government elections and encouraged the elections team to improve the ANC's online presence and community media engagement in light of the ongoing pandemic. On economic recovery and reconstruction, the NEC engaged with the draft Alliance discussion document on the economy in preparation for a forthcoming Alliance summit. The NEC directed that the next iteration of the discussion document must include a set of detailed practical proposals that the Alliance can table to social partners, labor, business, and community to inform a national plan that will be binding on all social partners. That is Plan 2032. There was agreement that this discussion document must also provide an assessment of the progress made with the implementation of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. This assessment will provide a basis for further actions that must be undertaken by the Alliance. The NEC highlighted a number of areas of consensus on which we must build to develop a common Alliance position. Unemployment is our key challenge and a significant contributing factor to social instability in our country. Our strategies must focus on recovering the jobs lost as a result of the pandemic, as well as creating new jobs at a much faster rate. The NEC agreed that we must continually emphasize inclusive growth and job creation that focus on opportunities and access for women, the youth, people with disabilities, and rural communities in all our initiatives and programs. There is consensus across the Alliance that our economic reconstruction will be led by significant reindustrialization, underpinned by infrastructure investments and manufacturing. We need to ensure that our products and services remain competitive in a global economy that prioritizes low emission products and services. Government needs to proceed with urgency and ambition to construct a new industrial landscape underpinned by environmentally sustainable technology, structures, institutions, processes, and energy sources. We need to be deliberate in ensuring that this sustainable economy is designed as premised in a just transition that enhances the empowerment of workers, Black people, women, and young people. Local government must undertake a common package of measures to facilitate economic development in their areas, including identifying specific areas of economic competitive advantage, ensuring enterprises are not deprived of basic services such as water and electricity, facilitating support for small business in terms of training loans and other enabling mechanisms. Crime and corruption have a negative impact on building and growing an inclusive economy. Local economic development is especially threatened by what has become known as local business forums, who demand what in essence amounts to protection fees in order not to disrupt business operations. The ANC supports government's planned intervention of a multidisciplinary law enforcement team composed of SAPS, the state security agency, Hawks, and provincial departments of community safety to develop a response strategy. At the same time, the NEC directed ANC structures to engage and encourage any of our members involved to desist from participation in such business forums. The NEC agreed that government needs to be more targeted in ensuring that skills development and education outcomes align with the needs of the economy. Learners and students in especially TVET colleges must be empowered to respond to the demands of the fourth industrial revolution. We also need to reskill existing workers and new entrants in the market. The ANC recognizes the devastating effect that COVID-19, and in particular this third wave, continues to have on our people and the country. The NEC agrees with the need for deft management of the pandemic, taking into account the need both to save lives and livelihoods. Targeted restrictions, together with increasing pace of vaccinations, are an investment in the long-term health of the people of this country. Whilst the GDP has begun to recover, this has not resulted in a similar recovery in employment. The NEC therefore directed its deployees in government to investigate what additional relief can be provided. In this regard, the NEC welcomed the extension of the COVID-19 TERS program for affected workers and business. Building a non-sexist organization and society, the ANC reiterates its strong commitment to the affirmation of women as equal citizens of the country and members of our organization. We condemn any threats or any forms of intimidation used to exclude women from candidate selection processes. The organization must take firm action where such wrongdoing is encountered. The NEC will engage structures continuously on the fundamental principle of building a non-sexist society. We urge government to give fuller expression to this principle by including initiatives aimed at women's economic empowerment and the gender inequality in all its programs. Gender-based violence continues to plague our society, and we need to be more consistent in speaking out against the scourge. The NEC commends the ANC Women's League for its ongoing campaigns against gender-based violence and femicide, and encourages all our structures to emulate the Women's League. Government must finalize its processes to implement the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide as a matter of urgency. Protecting the rights of the LGBTQI community. The NEC expressed its concern that our organization seems to be paying less attention and seemingly leaving the protection of the rights of the LGBTQI persons to the ANC Women's League only. There have been too many instances of violence against and murder of queer persons in the recent past, and the ANC must be stronger in speaking out against this. Any form of discrimination and violence based on sexual orientation and gender identity is unaccepted and will not be tolerated. We will embark on a campaign of educating society and encouraging all ANC members, especially male comrades, to become allies in the fight against homophobia. Reconfiguration of the alliance. We discussed the joint perspective on the reconfiguration of the alliance in preparation for the forthcoming Alliance Summit. The meeting reaffirmed the centrality of the alliance in defeating apartheid colonialism and eradicating its legacy by building a national democratic society. The meeting emphasized the importance of all components of the alliance being involved in the project of renewal, a common program of action aimed at addressing poverty, unemployment, and inequality, the strengthening of the developmental state, and the mobilization of motive forces, the role of the alliance building social compacts between government, labor, business, and communities, and establishment of mechanisms to constructively manage areas of disjuncture between alliance partners. On organizational matters, strengthening unity and renewal of the ANC, the NEC was unanimous that strengthening unity and renewing the ANC are the central mandates we received from the 54th National Conference. We reaffirmed the duty of every ANC member to work consistently and continuously to build unity and renew our movement. There was broad consensus in the meeting that renewal is not an event, but rather a series of interlinking actions, is multifaceted and will require dedication and commitment from all members of the movement. The NEC must intensively engage all structures and members in our endeavor to renew every aspect of how the organization works and serves the people. This process will be initiated as a matter of urgency. Our discussions with ANC structures should focus on developing a common understanding of the causes and features of challenges we face, as well as reaffirming the central pillars of our renewal project. Premised on this strategic objective of building a united, democratic, prosperous, and equitable society, these include building ANC branches as agents of change in their communities. The ANC must lead and be seen to be the leader of society. Ending corruption and patronage in all their manifestations. Developing committed and capable cadres. Uniting the people of South Africa around the cause of social transformation. Strengthening our non-racial character in both theory and practice. Building a more youthful organization. Achieving a gender equality across the board, enhancing people's confidence in the ANC and improving the ANC's electoral performance, embracing technology as an organizing tool. The NEC endorsed the proposal to establish a renewal commission composed of members of the NEC and other eminent ANC members with appropriate skills and expertise to develop a roadmap for renewal of the ANC called Vision 2032. The Secretary General's office, together with the O.R. Tambo Political School, will develop the terms of reference of the Renewal Commission, and these will be presented to the NEC for processing in the build-up to the 55th National Conference in 2022. On the MK Veterans 60th Anniversary celebrations, the NEC endorsed the proposal by MK Veterans that they have an advisory team consisting of the following comrades: Comrade Walter Msimang, Comrade Mac Maharaj, Comrade Abdullah Jasset, Comrade Gilbert Ramano, Comrade JJ Kopsi, and Comrade Jackie Sidibi. These are all members of the Lutuli detachment. Administration and finances. The NEC expressed its appreciation to the ANC staff who continue to serve the organization despite facing financial hardships. The national officials continue to be seized with resolving our financial challenges and will table a way forward in the coming weeks. Restoring discipline and integrity. Engagements will be urgently initiated between national and provincial disciplinary structures to strengthen our common understanding of the rules, procedures, and processes that govern the system of organizational discipline. The NEC will develop guidelines to strengthen our system of declaration of financial interests of all ANC leaders and finalize our position on lifestyle audits for ANC leaders and the policy on ANC leaders and their family members doing business with the state. We received the report on the implementation of the rules on step aside and reiterated that this decision must be applied consistently across all provinces without any deviation. The NEC ratified the decision of the NWC to appoint an Integrity Commission Appeals Committee consisting of Comrades Vusi Kanile as the chair, Mavivi Manzini, Josiah Jelle, Dipua Peters, Johnny De Lange, Lucille Meyer, and Mary Metcalf. Violence in organizational processes. The NEC reiterated its condemnation of violence that occurs during ANC organizational processes. We will continue to work with our structures and relevant law enforcement agency to address this criminality. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DSG. We'll now open for questions. We'll only do about 2 rounds of questions and appeal to the media that if your question has been covered, there's no need to repeat yourself. Can I now invite hands? Okay, Tando, Karin, John, and Carol.
Hello, Bule, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good day, DSG. My questions to you is suspended SG Ace Magashule last week said that the EFF leader, Julius Malema, could be the next ANC president. Could you provide a response to this? Additionally, Malema, through his Twitter account today, condemned the deployment of the army to affected areas where violence has erupted. Does the NEC support the statement? Also, please give an update on the disciplinary measures taken against members who are seen to be supporting former President Zuma outside his Nkandla home. Apart from Carl Niehaus, how many other members have been suspended for these activities? Thank you.
In that order.
Hi, thank you, Pule. Good afternoon, Ms. Duarte. I have two questions as well. My one question was also on the EFF, but put a little bit differently. I just want to know, what is the ANC's response to Malema's contention that the EFF will join in the riots if the SANDF intervenes? And my other question is about the ANC itself. Are you aware of any ANC structures fanning, through WhatsApp groups, planning or fanning the riots? And is the ANC involved in any mediation efforts behind the scenes to try and calm the situation, and especially KwaZulu-Natal? Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was me next. Hi, DSG. This is John Elligot, the New York Times. Do you all in any way see the unrest that's unfolding now as in some ways intentional efforts within by folks within the ANC to sabotage and delegitimize the current leadership of the ANC and the government as well?
Good day, Mrs. Duarte. Carol Payton speaking from Business Day. I want to know specifically about the former president's daughter, Dudu Zuma Sibodla. She has been fanning, making all sorts of tweets on her social media account. She's wearing ANC colors. She seems to be doing this as an ANC member. Can you comment on what the ANC is going to do about that, or are you just going to leave her to continue? Thanks very much.
Thank you. So let me try to answer these 5 questions first. So anybody can have an opinion about who might lead the ANC, but it's not for the SG to make that determination. He knows very well that you have to be a member of the ANC, NEC, firstly, for at least 10 years. First of all, you have to be a member of the ANC for at least 10 years to be a member, to get into the NEC. Let's start there. Secondly, he also knows as a matter of fact that it is the branches of the ANC that makes that determination. And yeah, people can lobby, and they do lobby. And of course, we know that people throw lots of cash around and so on, but ultimately it's the branches of the ANC through their delegates who make that choice and that decision, and no single individual. It can be wished, but your wishes don't always come true. You don't always get everything you want. How many others have been suspended? Nobody yet, nobody else yet. We're quite careful with suspension. In the case of Mr. Niehaus, I can't really go into it in too much detail, because there's a video clip, there's a voice clip, 2 or 3 video clips, 2 or 3 voice clips that do point to him suggesting that there could be violence and so on. So he has been suspended, and he has appealed his suspension. We received his appeal today. That will go to the National Disciplinary Committee of Appeal for further consideration. Any structure in our country who deliberately announces that they will be joining violent actions in the country will simply have to accept that the police and will have to deal with them in the same way that they deal with any other criminal who does so. It is a criminal activity to loot and burn. It is a criminal activity to damage people's property. You know, we've also seen lives lost. I haven't slept much. Excuse me, I'm not looking for sympathy. But last night at about 2 a.m., I got a call from Katlehong and a photograph with the call that said an old man had been shot, who was looting. And I looked at the photograph, and what really made me sad was next to him was a carton of milk. You know, I must say that we should never abuse the poverty of our people in this way. We should not do that. Now, we must find ways to alleviate that poverty and eradicate it, but we cannot abuse it politically. We can never do that. That's the worst crime in my book. Are there structures of the ANC through WhatsApp groups? We've not detected structures of the ANC sitting down and having a deliberate discussion to create this wave of violence, no. But we would say honestly that there are individuals whom have been identified, and we have handed names to the police openly, let's say that, for investigation. We can't deny that there has been a brewing of this, and it's unfortunate because no amount of anger, frustration can ever move you to doing this amount of damage that has already been done. And there's no recovery, in a sense, for many people. And unfortunately, the reaction of communities is also equally worrying and yet understandable. There's a clip from Verulam today where the community have armed themselves to protect their property and their lives. There's a similar clip from other communities in KwaZulu-Natal where the communities are now arming themselves. So we will see a spate of vigilante action as well. And this is something that we have to stem as a matter of urgency. Is it intended to sabotage and delegitimize the ANC's leadership? Of course it is. It is meant to do that. But the leadership of the ANC is resilient and very strong, and it will not be delegitimized by acts of violence. I think these people have to be a lot smarter than that, because acts of violence have to include the communities. And at some point, the community will turn away from that. We all know that. We've seen it in the past. We've lived through the violence. We've understood that the waves come and go, and ultimately communities do turn away from it. We saw that in 2016 during local government elections. It does abate. On the question of Duduzile Zuma, yes, we have seen the tweets. It's not only Duduzile Zuma, there are 5 other people who are also tweeting. Some are claiming that their tweets are fake. But if your tweet is fake, then you remove the fake tweet, or you put a fake sign over the tweet. You don't let it run for days on end, calling for let it burn, and you shall reap what you have sowed. That's the primary message that these very same 5 people are using, including Duduzile Zuma. So yes, we're not leaving it there. She will have to answer. She is a member of the ANC. And every member of the ANC is equal to every other member of the ANC, and she will have to explain what her tweets mean and where they're going to lead to. So that's all I can really say at this moment. Further questions?
Okay, DSG, can we continue? Still, we can continue with the list.
Yes, please.
John, Carol, Juanita, Nogukanya, Mbali, and Sidi.
John.
In that order.
Okay.
Sorry, I've already asked my question. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Juanita, Nogukanya, Mbali, and Sidi.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duarte. You say that obviously the poverty of the people must not be abused. It is now, and we see the consequences of it. Does the ANC agree with the view that there needs to be strong consequences for the people who have been inciting and mobilizing the unrest in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal? Thank you very much.
Afternoon to everyone. It's Nokanya from Jacaranda. DSG, in your delivery of the outcomes, you spoke about the ANC having to appear as leaders of society. So my question around that is whether the ANC is satisfied with how it's handled the current political turmoil, as much as there's criminal elements to it, but at the base of it is also a political element. We've had provincial leaders who haven't been seen on the ground. So are we not beyond the point where we're hiding behind Zoom engagements with political leaders? Should they not be at this point on the ground? Then I wanted to add to John's question from earlier about the violence being created to undermine the leadership. Does the party accept that the factional battles are beyond or behind rather the escalating violence? And then my third one was around the party building its unity and recreating its image. Do you think your efforts are showing any signs of improvement at this point? And then my last one is around the KZN Premier Sihle Zikalala having advocated publicly for the presidential pardon for former President Jacob Zuma. Is the NEC in support of this call? Thank you.
Good afternoon, DSG. It's Mbali from Newsroom Africa. DSG, I just want to ask if whether the NEC also dealt with some of the remarks in which we saw yesterday from President Cyril Ramaphosa, which had a lot of people outraged when he also blamed some of these protests on ethnic mobilization. Are these comments that you as the NEC spoke about? Because we know that such comments they have the potential to divide the country. And also adding on to that, a number of people and protesters that we have seen on television and other broadcasters, they've also said that, these protests in which we see are also due to factional battles within the ANC. What are your thoughts on that when some are also alluding these protests in KZN as well as Gauteng to the internal factional battles of the party? And also adding to Nokukanya's question there, is the ANC speaking about this presidential pardon? We've heard it from Sihle Zikalala, and it seems to be also doing the rounds just, with the former president. Did you also talk about the presidential pardon? And what is the position of the NEC when it comes to that? Thank you very much.
Hi, Jessie. This is CD from Eyewitness News. Ali and Nokukanya kind of covered some of the questions I had. I wanted to know the ANC's position on ethnic mobilization, whether or not the ANC's president in government has erred in defining these as that. The ANC's position on that, and on the pardon as well, with Sihle Zikalala and the ANC in KZN saying that's the best answer. I know you said you are aware of Duduzile Zuma's comments. I want back to mediation and whether or not you've reached out to the Zuma family, not a question of what can we do about his incarceration, but what can we do to try and make amends. I mean, there are people who seemingly have surrounded themselves with the family and are part and parcel of where the foundations of this chaos started. And have you reached out to those people? There's also been lots of criticism of the ANC leadership for not being on the ground. Somebody asked you, are you proud of how you've handled this? Can you answer as to why you have not gone out to particular communities? I think the only time I saw that happening was today, where here in Kuruleni, I think one of the MMCs went out to an area where there was anarchy. I want to ask about the Northwest. There's been problems there. Imagine that the Northwest came up in the NEC. What is the way forward for the Northwest? I might have missed it. And then lastly, the MKMVA. Jessie, it's disbanded, yet to continue outside of the party. What happens there? I know there's issues around Carl Niehaus linked to Nkandla, but the entire structure, continuing to have an NEC meeting outside of the ANC, what does the party then do going forward? Thank you.
Okay, let me try. I think you might have seen, Juanita, that there are consequences already. Unfortunately, people are being arrested in KwaZulu-Natal, and some have been arrested in Gauteng. So, you know, the sad part of it is that people who have called for this are the ones who drive off to their homes after they've made the call, and the people who find themselves, unfortunately, looting and burning are the ones who are being arrested, and they have been arrested. I think that I saw a report on News 24 of 215 arrests today and more. So there's no idea that there shouldn't be strong consequences, either for those who are directly involved or for those who incite. So both of those, the answer is yes, there will be. The question of whether our factions are behind this violence, I would imagine that it would be, in part, a factional, would have started as a factional matter, but we can't factionalize Comrade Zuma or his circumstances. We can only say that it is really difficult for all of us that a leader of our movement is sentenced to 15 months for contempt of court. And so I saw that we were criticized by some journalists on SABC, and I thought, well, fair enough, we must be criticized for saying that we love Comrade Zuma. But the fact of the matter is that, as we said in our statement, it has its nexus in the fact that people began by being angry about the arrest of Comrade Zuma. And it fanned out from there. And unfortunately, let me just link that to the fact that initially, when we were watching what was happening and also listening to what was happening, and NEC members who were at Nkandla at the time heard very much the rhetoric of a kind of rhetoric that suggested an ethnic problem, which Comrade Zuma does not actually support. So that is not the primary reason why for what has happened. And you're asking me to judge the president, and I'm not going to do that. We think that what has happened is it's much bigger than that. And the obvious perception is that when people mobilize people in a hostel, it would be ethnic. But we did discuss the idea on Monday last week. We discussed at length that people wearing their cultural attire in our country is not unusual. We all do that when we have to. So you cannot ascribe it, my wearing my cultural attire and protesting in it in any way. You can't actually add any value to that. What you add value to is the fact that you are protesting and what you are protesting about. And your ethnicity in this instance doesn't matter. The looters and the people who are burning out there are not declaring which ethnicity they are from. They're looting and they're burning. So I think we need to understand that it is dynamic, it is fluid. There was rhetoric that was expressing that viewpoint, but that viewpoint initially seems to have died away. It's gone away, and it would have gone away because this is South Africa, and people for a brief period of time do that, but then that falls away. So can we say that we are getting to the point where our factional battles are going to lead us into this destructive cycle? We hope not. And it's a relatively few people, and I've said to you 5 or 6 people who starts this in KwaZulu-Natal. In Gauteng, I can tell you that it is one sub-region in Soweto, one person who's very vocal and very strong. In Mpumalanga, similarly. So it's people, it's what we call the strongman syndrome. And the strongman syndrome does attract people because these are the very people who are linked to the people who insist on 35% of money that must come from local government when there's a contract and so forth. So it's a bit more complex, and I don't want to oversimplify it. It's a bit more complex than a simple matter of ascribing it to a faction in the ANC. We all met today in the NEC and we were unanimous that we all do not want to see this violence, that we all condemn it unanimously. So there was no one in the NEC, irrespective of which faction they might belong to, who said, yes, but I agree with the violence. So I don't think that that is exactly, I hope I'm explaining it properly, but we are not so convinced that the factions, in fact, are at the core of this violence. It's a bit wanton. It's planned. It's not something that was just sporadic. A list of places to be targeted was put out on social media this week. 80% of that list is dead accurate. So it is planned. It is somebody sitting somewhere and planning this. So we're not going to say that that's not happening. What's important is to be able to undermine that with truth and with an ability to ensure that they're not able to carry their messages forward too much and too often. Repeating somebody's message on social media and on the media many times is what inspires sometimes these acts of wanton violence. How are we winning with the unity and is this really happening? You know, I could give statistics, but that's very boring. I'm not going to do that. What we've won on is that we only now at this moment have 37% of our branches of over 4,860 who are not in good standing. So we've worked extremely hard to put the structure of the ANC back in place, and it's getting there. We've also had the commitment of provincial and provincial leaders and regional leaders to continue to do the work of the ANC and to move away from working for an individual or having sporadic events that would promote one individual. What we see more and more is people doing work that is really building the ANC. What we'd like to see is people encouraging service delivery in a much more dynamic way than they're doing at the moment. So is it presidential pardon? You know, it might be a desire, but presidential pardons you have to apply for. And so the person affected would apply for a presidential pardon. It doesn't come from outside of the system itself. You have to be in the system to apply for a presidential pardon, or you have to have been released from the system to apply for a presidential pardon and have your record expunged. So this is entirely something that belongs to the individual themselves. I can't recall Comrade Sisley saying that, but I think that if he did, it has to be understood that it would have to be the person applying. Are we mediating? I know you know this. You won't ask me a question unless you have the answer. Yes, we have a mediator working with us who's talking to us and members of the family, trying to calm down the anger of the family members a little bit, trying to smooth over some of the issues. We have a good relationship with the Zuma family. Most of us do. There's no reason for us to have antagonism, and we don't have antagonism. We are concerned about the tweets made by Duduzile. We were very concerned about Makumalo, and of course she's out of hospital and she's fine. Why haven't we been on the ground? Primarily the real problem we face is COVID, the COVID issue, and also the level 4 issues. The norm for us would be to go on the ground and have a meeting with all our structures in a hall on a day and move around from one branch to the next. It's difficult to do that. And that's why we resorted to Zoom to do the report backs in the last week, and they were successful. However, we do have a team of NEC members in KwaZulu-Natal at the moment. They've been there since last week, Monday, and they will continue to remain there to work on whatever we need them to work on. I don't see that we will ask you to, as the media, to join us, because then we will all be arrested for breaking COVID rules, but they are on the ground. They do interact with the branches. They're not going to looting sites. I don't think they've done that at all yet. I suppose you might want us to go and see who has looted what. Fair enough. I accept that. But, you know, we are communicating. And I think that is something you need to accept. We are communicating very dynamically. Last week, we had a communication which was rather large, a little bit unwieldy. But it happens on the platforms that we can do. So at the present time, we're trying to request if the leadership of KwaZulu-Natal cannot go out to the villages and meet directly with numbers of people and to branches. If they do it on their own, they will be breaking COVID laws. And if any of us go to an area, we will attract people to us and we will be breaking COVID laws. And I'm not hiding behind the COVID laws, but they are a reality. The regulations are a reality. We had hoped that we could have reached a point by now when we would have come down the, you know, where we would have flattened the curve a little bit, but we haven't flattened the curve and our infection rate is very high, which is one of the reasons we are concerned about the numbers of people that are out, that are not wearing masks, and that are, and very young people. And as we know, COVID is attacking young people now. So yes, I think then mediation Northwest. We have discussed Northwest quite at great length. So Northwest is one of the provinces where we believe there needs to be some important organizational changes to assist the province from getting out of what has essentially been a very difficult period. So the officials will discuss as soon as we can at our next meeting, a proposal made by the Northwest IPC to us on a number of local councils that they feel are not performing and what we could do as the ANC there. I would say we're in agreement with them to a large extent that there's no point in maintaining dysfunctionality. We have to move on. Also, we are having discussions and there is a system of actually evaluating even the provincial government at the moment. So all of that is happening. We can't just do things willy-nilly. We have to do it in a well-organized way so that we don't have difficulties. On MKMVA and the National Council, we have agreed on the 5th, when we met on Monday, that both these structures are indeed disbanded. That MKMVA still meets and has an NEC meeting. They made it clear to us, Kebi Mapatswa made it clear to us that he does not accept the decision of the NEC and that they're an autonomous organization, but at the same time, they'd like to be part of the preparatory team for the Unity Conference of MK. We will be meeting with them. They've requested another meeting with the officials. Yes, we will meet them, no problem there. But the decision stands. We can't reverse that decision. It will stand. Criticism, we must be criticized. Of course, we will be criticized, CD. But as I've explained, I think that it is not fair to say that the KZN leadership have not been out on the ground. They have been. I've witnessed that. Maybe we're not telling you where we're going because it's difficult to go there if we also take you along with us. But they are on the ground and there are 5 other NEC members who've been added to their team of 10 to assist them in the next couple of days. To find, to engage with structures in KZN. There's a question on the chat group, but I can't see it.
DSG, we've got 2 hands. I think it's John DeLang and Craig Mockel.
Okay, please.
And then on the chat group, No, I think this is Craig was saying he wants to pose a question on behalf of an energy industry body to report back. The question is on the economic recovery. So I think what we're doing here, Craig, is mostly questions for media purposes.
Level.
Doesn't look like we still have. Okay. Doesn't look like we still have any more questions.
Bird's eye view. Levels.
Hello, may I shoot? May I continue?
She was talking. Pule, have you disappeared?
No, I'm here. I did say Jan can continue with the question.
Oh, you were muted. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Deputy General Secretary, it seems that there's a discrepancy at least, or maybe possibly more than a discrepancy, that there's that Jacob Zuma, for instance, doesn't recognize or doesn't recognize the authority and the rule of law and the role of the Constitutional Court, and that may be the reason for his contempt of court conviction. And for his refusal to appear before the commission, and that the following the riots in KZN and in Gauteng is a result of that. For instance, the Jacob Zuma Foundation over the weekend, when asked what the view on the riots in KZN and elsewhere is, went on to they went into an attack on the Constitutional Court for the judgment of Jacob Zuma. That there's a discrepancy and a large part of the constituency of the ANC who doesn't recognize the Constitutional Court as the supreme voice of last conflict resolution in South Africa. Does the ANC, does this concerns you, and did you discuss this at all? That maybe there's, you have a task in addressing this amongst ANC supporters and ANC members, and as you said, some prominent ANC leaders who share this view.
I think, Jan, the ANC respects the rule of law and respects the Constitutional Court and the institutions of our democracy. We may have views about, people may have views about one or other judgment. We can't deny people their right to have a view, but we respect the rule of law. And we have to accept that if you are a member of the ANC, then you also have to respect the rule of law. I think that there are, when an accused person over many years may feel justified in being in raising questions and issues about the courts, but raising a question about the courts does not mean you don't respect the rule of law. I think it's the manner in which you raise those issues and the manner in which the court responds that is important. The ANC respects the rule of law. We expect our members to respect the rule of law and to respect the Constitutional Court as the final arbiter in matters of conflict and confusion in our country. So I really think that asking us to ascribe what a person might be thinking or people might be thinking in their individual capacities. I can't talk for the Jacob Zuma Foundation. I'm not a member of the foundation. I can't speak for it. And also, Jimmy Manyi is not a member of the ANC. He's a member of another political party. I can only speak for the ANC. So when you say there's a discrepancy, I would like to just say this to you. Comrade Jacob Zuma has never fought the ANC, but he's taken all his battles through the courts of South Africa. He's gone to the courts, one court after the next. after the next, right up to the Constitutional Court very recently. So I think that that does not suggest somebody who does not respect the courts, but is looking for the courts to give him a just outcome. And if he's not satisfied with that outcome, he may have a view on that as an accused person. But the ANC respects the rule of law, and that's something that you can't remove from the ANC. It is there. It is who we are. We have to respect the rule of law. It's sometimes uncomfortable to some of our members, but we do respect the rule of law. Pule, my light is fading. Pule?
Yes, DSG. I've got 2 more. Okay, it's the same old hands. I'm not sure if we still have got any more hands.
My hand is a new hand, Pule. It's Karim. It's just a follow-up question, if it's allowed. I didn't know we had another go.
Okay, no, that's fine. You can do that. But then after this one, the DSG has dealt extensively with all your questions. After this, then we'll close the briefing. Okay, Karim, you can.
Thank you, Pule. And yeah, I don't want Ms. Duarte's light to fade. Just a quick question. You said that there was a list on social media circulating before the riots and all those places it turned out to be true. I'm just wondering, if there was so much intelligence available beforehand, why does the ANC think the police, I don't know, sort of failed to apprehend or failed to, not apprehend, to I don't know, to secure the places that were on the list? Did you not expect this to happen? I'm just wondering, it just seems that it took people by surprise, and yet there were these lists on social media.
The ANC is not the police, Karim. We may have an opinion about any matter in this country, but ultimately I saw that list, many other people saw it. I can't say that the police saw it or did not see it. They may have. But there is a fact that is real, that 80% of the places on that list were places that were targeted. So clearly there was somebody sitting down and doing a plan. And it's a what do you say, you can be very smart after the fact, but that is what we've realized has happened. And hopefully others would have seen it too. I'm sure you did, because social media plays very much in your space. But the list was put out, and many of those places were the places that last night were targeted. So I think the police have done the best they can. I really do believe that what the police and the manner in which they behaved at Nkandla was exemplary. Many people may have a problem with that, but I can only say this to you: when you are confronted with a group of people who may be armed and you go in guns blazing, then lives will be lost. And the manner in which they handled that was good. They did not lose lives. They did not. There were no clashes. And when Comrade Zuma handed himself over, after that, people went home. So I think that was a good situation. What is not a good situation, of course, is what ensued after that. And that list was out. I don't know who the person. You can never know who the person is that compiles the list, because those things are shared and forwarded dozens of times. So perhaps it takes time to find who the originator is. I don't know. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I have a little WhatsApp account, but I would not go on Twitter or Facebook. I don't think it adds any value to my life. But it is there, and it's been shared over and over again. Even yesterday it was shared. So yeah, best you can do is send it on to the police and say, have you seen this list? But the ANC itself is not the police. And I think we must not make the ANC the police. The police must act independently and they must be able to do their work as best they can.
No, thanks, DSG. This should bring us to the end of our briefing. We don't have any more outstanding hands. And yeah, thanks for handling all of the questions in the manner that you did, DSG. And I'm sure that members of the media are satisfied with the clarity that the African National Congress has been able to provide. Thank you very much, members of the media.
Please all go home safely. We've lost a lot of people as the ANC. I just need to say that to you. Today, three ANC members gone. People that we know very well in the morning, every day. So wish you well, stay safe. COVID-19 is not going to make an exception of anyone.